Hello, bonsai friends. This is Evan Pardue of Underhill Bonsai, and welcome to episode 58 of Little Things for Bonsai People. This time, I am joined by one of my co-hosts. It's going to be Carmen Leskovinsky this time. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty excellent.
Wonderful.
It's one of the best times of the year here in the United States. So I was just in the back. I had a Sawzall, and I was literally hacking trident maples down to stumps.
I thought you were going to say Christmas, but cutting trident maples is fun too.
Yeah, we are in the Christmas season. All the holiday
capitalism.
Yeah. Anyway, today's topic is going to be what we will put in our bonsai tool bag and why they are important. We're going to go over a list of bonsai tools. We are a bonsai beginner podcast to a little bit more advanced for anyone that's listening that's brand new to this episode. So we like to go back and cover the basics every once in a while. I think it's fair. But before we get into that, I do want to mention that our podcast is sponsored by our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/little things for bonsai people. Come on over there and become a bonsai best bud at the $5 level. And you can go in the Discord and hang out with these amazing people. Starting off our list with Tori Solis, Vicky Alth, Boyd Snellgrove, Ricky Ruins, Joshua Bentley, Stappy Chappers, Joel Jenkins, Justin Knight, Backyard Bonsai Australia, Greenwich Gardens, Taylor Peacock, Chase Pertweet, Austin Atkins, Karen Coswell, oh God.
Unruin? Is that right?
Nope, it's Ryu.
Nope.
Unrayuin. They also are our specimen bonsai best bud, Luis Torres, AC Castle, Bonsai Marine, Jas Potts, Chris Vassoon, Tiffany Arsenal, Randy Bennett, Victrina.
You said Tiffany again.
Oh, I did. It's okay. He'll deal with it. Victrina Ridgeway, LaRon's Bonsai Yard, Nancy Hoffman, Nate Murray, Nancy Hoffman again, because I put her down as a new member and totally goofed on it. You get 2 shout outs this week. Joshua Roth Tools. What was that?
Yeah, Nancy.
Yeah, you're doing great. But yeah, and then J.M. Stewart Woodworking. So Joshua Roth Tools and J.M. Stewart Woodworking are our actual brand new Bonsai Best Buds this week. Thank you guys so much for signing on at the $5 Bonsai Best Bud patron level. And speaking of Joshua Roth, we do have a little special thing to announce on this episode. But I want to go ahead and mention our editor, Matt O'Donnell. He makes us sound smart. He cleans up our audio. It makes us enjoyable to listen to. Go over to mattodonnell.com. That's ODONNELL.com. Fill out a contact form to start your own podcast show or audio engineering project with him. He's a set basis living in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's an all-around awesome guy. It's in the script. I read it every time. For Joshua Roth, though, we have a special sponsor from them, a sponsorship, so that's amazing. I would like to thank John with Joshua Roth Tools so much for this. This means the world to have a really high-end, very nice brand of tools supporting our show because they just really like our show. And one of the things that they're actually offering is we're doing giveaways now. So me and Carmen have been thinking about a way to be creative on how to give away some tools. What do you think, Carmen?
Yeah, so we have decided that if you are in our $5 patron level, we'll be pulling a random name out of a hat for one of the cool Joshua Roth tools that we have. You have until December 25th to become a $5 level patron. And then we will pull the name, I don't know, sometime after Christmas, before the new year. And we'll announce it here on the podcast and send you your fancy schmancy new Joshua Roth tool.
Yep. And tools could include anywhere from their really awesome stainless steel bonsai trimming shears, concave cutters, knob cutters. They even have some really fancy hats, some like dad style hats that they've given me to give away. So it'll be like a nice little present. So we'll do random pulls, and then I'll do random pulls on the stuff that I have to give away. I mean, thank you again, Joshua Roth, so much for sponsoring our show. So
yeah, that's super awesome. I'm super excited. Actually, I need some new tools because I've screwed up a couple of mine recently. So this is great timing.
Yeah, this is really good timing for everything because like before we even spoke with Joshua Roth, I was planning on doing a tool bag episode anyway, like a special kind of thing where we're laid back on this one. I know we just had some really big guests this previous episode, so that was a little mind-boggling, and it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. But it's not every day that you get to talk to somebody like that, like Tommy Lee. So, and
that was like super surreal. I'm just sitting in my bedroom on a Zoom call with Tommy Lee. It's like, what is my life? I don't even know anymore.
Oh yeah.
That was super fun.
Me and Mike talked about that too. It's very interesting. We want to go ahead and if Tommy's out there listening, thank you again for being on the show. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So as far as bonsai tools go, there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of ground to cover there. But before we get into that, though, I mean, we were talking a little bit pre-recorded. You had actually taken a trip to Bonsai Mirai. Was that last week? Do you want to tell listeners about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was super cool. So we had a visitor in the garden for the last week or so, and we were able to go see Mirai while he was here. And I've only ever seen it in photographs online, all that stuff. And to actually go there was a really surreal experience. It's everything you see in the pictures, but like you're there and it's kind of an overwhelming place. There's so many trees and everything is super high quality material. A lot of really big stuff. So it was just, it's so funny. I kind of ran out of words and I talk a lot. So at one point I was just walking around, just like staring at everything, not knowing what to say really. So it was a really cool experience. I'm glad I was finally able to make it out there. I have a contact from Michigan who was out there working, and so he got us a nice little inn, and it was great. We spent a few hours walking around the yard, talking with Ryan, checking out what the students were doing, and yeah, just some of the ponderosas in particular that were there were so twisty and knotted and just, stuff you don't see every day. And then some of the plantings were really unique. They weren't traditional, but they weren't totally, like crazy. It was just something with a more modern pot, an awkward planting angle that worked really well, or like something planted on a rock, planted in a dish or something like that. So it was just really interesting presentations of stuff throughout the garden. And it was cool. I'd recommend anybody who can get out there either to work with Ryan or to just see the garden. It's a pretty amazing experience. So yeah. It's cool.
I'm interested to see that I know there's that coastal redwood planting he has that's in that gazebo thing.
Dude, it's like
it's monstrous.
It's so big. And then it's all on
than I would imagine it from the photos, right?
Yeah, you can you have to climb through it. Like it's and then it's all situated on a large piece of deadwood redwood. But each section is like its own separate tree or set of trees, and there's just so much to look at within that composition. It has its little gazebo. It's its own cold storage, so it gets panels on it in the wintertime. Has its own heater, its own spigot for water. It's a whole room of redwood. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Huge.
Because I know that one's a big deal. That one's pretty interesting. I know he's been working on that for a good number of years.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many trees in his portfolio to go through. But and
it was cool to see some that I had seen online or trees that I've seen in other people's yards that have ended up there. Or I know he's been buying in a lot of stuff from the Backcountry Boys. And I remember seeing them posting some things going, oh man, that would be an amazing tree to work on. And then I saw it in Ryan's yard, and it was really cool to see some of those trees fresh from the mountains, ready to go. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's bonsai history in the making for sure. So I know that there's a few other trees that have passed through his hands recently that, just go over to bonsaimarai.com and just go to his portfolio area and you'll see what I'm talking about. I know that there's probably going to be a lot of cross-reference stuff here. I mean, we talk about Ryan every once in a while, and I know that he's also got his Bonsai Marai learning channel, which is, I mean, an invaluable source of information. So not a sponsor of the show or anything. He's just obviously a really good, cool guy. Go over and check out his stuff.
If you're into American bonsai or, American species, it's definitely worth checking out his work and how he approaches some of the material in ways that aren't necessarily traditional, but really interesting. They're doing some cool stuff over there as far as science goes too. He's got a background in horticulture, so it's kind of fun to hear about some of the stuff they're working on as the labs they're working with and all of that. So it's cool stuff. And yeah, I don't know.
It's probably
I want to go back. I want to go look again. I could sit there all day and just stare at some of those trees. They're pretty cool.
It's probably a similar experience that I had to whenever I went to Dan Robinson to see his collection over in, what's the name of the area over there? Eden Gardens. The Olympic Peninsula area.
Yeah. Because it's like outside of Seattle.
Yeah. And a lot of his trees, like you said, I've seen some of those trees in books and in photos online and stuff, and seeing them in person, it's like, this is really something else. And to know the training and the age and the time put into those trees, it's incredible. And it makes you want, like you said, it makes you want to go out there and just be with the tree, and explore it and look at the details and see all the work, the years of work on it. That's really what I like seeing in these older trees and these professional collections. So I know I recommend this a lot in the show, but if you have a bonsai collection near you and you haven't been, and a professional works in your area or something, just go. It will really, really help you out.
Just go look at trees. Just go spend time with trees, and you'll start to see some things that you've never seen before, or new ways of doing things, or just enjoying the trees that are in your area. I think is super important, just to help support bonsai where you are. So
and I mean, that's one of the things I like. During the holiday seasons, I have a lot of people coming in buying beginner trees and stuff, and for their loved ones, and they're like, okay, well, how do they style this? And that's always like one of the funniest things, one of the funniest questions I get. I'm like, that's not my journey. What you need to tell them is to look at as many bonsai trees as possible, pictures in person, and then visit our nursery. And even if they haven't been here, tell them come here and we could talk and I can show them all the things that are possible. And I mean, that's a really hard question to answer. And so, that's another way to do it. I mean, arboretums, professional collections, classes, obviously. But
we should, after the holidays, and I don't know, Matt can cut this out if he wants to, but we should do an episode that's like, oh, so you got a bonsai for Christmas. Now what? Because
no, we should definitely do that.
that would be so fun.
I think that's, you know what? I'm putting that in the show notes.
That'll be like our first episode of the year. Like,
you don't get enough credit.
Bonsai for Christmas. Now what?
You don't get enough credit. You get this one.
Yes.
I'm writing that down. You got a bonsai for Christmas. Now what? I like that.
Don't put it on your coffee table. Step one.
Well, we'll get to that later. But yeah, bonsai tools. So where do we start with this? So
great question.
What does the essential bonsai tool bag look like? And I know you work in a studio with Michael, and you guys have tools.
We have tools. Like, we have a tool that we just pulled out for the first time since I've worked with Michael, and I've known him for, oh God, what year is it? I've known him for more than 5 years, and it's the first time I've ever seen this tool used, and we just pulled it out yesterday, 2 days ago. I don't remember, this week. So yeah, there's so many tools out there. I think for me personally, my go-tos are the bud scissor,
Uh,
the concave cutter, wire cutters,
Yep.
pliers, and a chopstick. Those 5 are my must-haves for doing bonsai.
So a bud cutter. So let's start with that one.
Bud scissor. So that's just like, it's a scissor, but I like the smaller scissors, like the 7-inch small blade. Some people use the longer handled ones or the slightly bigger ones, but I like the small scissors, and it might just be because I have small hands, but they're very good for trimming.
And I mean, that's the pair of scissors that you guys see whenever I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, Mr. Miyagi's trimming the tree with his scissors, and they're kind of like, they just look like a regular pair of trimming shears. They could be long handle. They're usually narrow, like they call it Kiri style. It's a Kiri, which is, one of the types of tools that we will be giving away. That's a Joshua Roth tool. Joshua Roth tool is a Kiri style. I know the listeners can't see what I'm holding, but I do have a very basic version of bud trimmers. They could be, like Carmen said, they could be 7 inches. They could be all the way up to, I've seen them like 9 inches, like obnoxiously long. But yeah, bud trimming specifies exactly what their name is. And I think that the bud trimmer is probably the most abused tool in the whole tool bag.
Yep. It's the one that you're like, I don't really feel like grabbing a wire cutter, so I'm just going to try to cut this size 16 copper wire with this scissor in my hand, and then you regret it.
And then you dent the crap out of your blade.
And then you're like, crap, now I need a new tool again. So don't do that.
Sometimes, and there are some tool brands out there that say that their bonsai bud cutter or bonsai shear is big enough to handle, I think, somewhere, I'm going to think about like copper versus aluminum, because aluminum, we deal with it in millimeter, millimeter. Wait, is that right?
No, that's copper.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Millimeter. It's the other way around for how we sell aluminum here at our nursery. But the smallest pieces, like we call it number 1. Or you guys would call it the other way around, to be like number 14.
Oh, for copper, it's the tiny one is like 24. We never use that though, almost.
Oh, like the tiniest of tiniest. Yeah.
Tiny.
Like even the tiny one. Like, yeah, you could clip copper. Aluminum's much softer.
There's actually, I have a pair of scissors, and so I don't know. This is we're still in the range of scissors, but there are scissors for everything. The bud trimmers, I think, are your essential, but it's good to have another pair of scissors, maybe a little heavier duty for root work. And we have a pair of root scissors that I love because it has a wire cutter kind of built into it. So when you're doing repotting and stuff, it's super nice to just be able to use the same tool for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can find another one, because that one's Michael's and I want one.
Yeah. So the bud scissor is, like I was saying, like you want to cut small, branching, you don't want to cut anything. I guess the best way for me to describe it is like pinky size is kind of like, or you should max out with that tool. With the scissors,
for that question, my answer is if you think that the branch is too big to cut with your scissor, like if you're questioning it, then it's too big. Like,
like if you're applying pressure and you're like, man, this just doesn't feel like this is going, it's going the way I need it to.
Yeah, it won't.
Dial it back and use either larger shears or use our next tool that is on the list, that I think is kind of the next essential tool. I know you said your list earlier, and we should have jotted that down or something, but
I can jot it down.
So yeah, so we got our bud scissor, and then we got our
concave cutter.
Concave cutter, not our convex, but a concave.
Concave.
Yeah. So this is usually the tool that goes up to the bigger size branches you can cut. up to a thumb usually with this. And whenever I'm describing tools and I'm talking about cutting things, it's always a little weird to tell people like, yeah, you could cut something around about as big as your pinky with this one and a thumb with the other one. And then like I sit there and have like these intrusive thoughts of being like,
Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I'm just like,
your intrusive thought.
No. My intrusive thought of like, I
could cut my thumb off with that.
Yeah, I'm like, should I? No, I should not cut my thumb with that.
No, so like, I cut my thumb with a concave cutter the other day, but it was an accident. So
yeah, that's another thing. Tool safety. I have done it more than one time, but like I'll have my bud scissors and I will be going through a tree, just like methodically trimming back different parts for to achieve different parts of the refinement or to line my basically bud selection. And I'll put my hand right in the way, and I've snipped through my right hand into like different angles and like the tips and the sides of my finger. Luckily, I haven't cut down to the bone, but I usually pull my hand back quick enough for me to not cut all the way through sometimes.
Do you ever because I've done that before too, where and I know the scissors are going to cut my hand. Like I know my hand is in the way, but for some reason, I'm just like, I'm so on autopilot. I'm like, oh, I'm going to cut myself. Oops. It's just, I know I should have moved my hand and I didn't.
Yeah. And it's kind of like when you get that rhythm and you get that confidence when you're using your tools and you become very familiar with the way that you move around a tree with your tools. And then we forget that our skin's like super soft and very, very cuttable with a metal pair of scissors. So that's one of the things that people don't tell you about with bonsai is that, they're like, oh, I'm getting ready to go meditate and go hang out with my tree. And then you cut like the tip of your callus of your finger off and you're just like, those are the moments that will define whether or not you want to keep trimming your tree. But luckily,
wait till you get to carving. Ooh.
Oh yeah. Carving's a whole different thing. We'll get to carving in a little while. But I've seen some pretty brutal carving accidents. So, but yeah, like luckily, if you keep your shears sharp, like your regular shears, if they're because I tell other people it's not an intrusive thought. I'm like, if it's surgically sharp, you're cutting live tissue. It should be a nice clean cut. I'm always like, oh god. And then I'll think about when I've cut through my finger, and I'm like, oh, if I just put like one of those butterfly band-aids on this, it'll heal over because it's a clean cut.
Yeah. And it does.
Stay positive. You'll be fine. But yeah, a concave cut. How did you cut yourself with that? You just like tip of the tool?
Here's another pointer for everybody. Don't use the wrong tool for the job. I had a concave in my hand, and so I was using it to finish wrapping a wire instead of a plier.
Oh,
and I should have used. Yeah, that was really dumb. My thumb just got right in the way. And I just it was a new concave too. And so real sharp. So I surgically, very precisely cut the side of my thumb open. It healed really fast though. So it's the benefit of sharp tools, I suppose.
Don't use concave cutters to twist your wire, Carmen.
I know better. Every time I use the wrong tool for the job, I get hurt.
I know how many times I had to tell you this.
It happened with the saw. I used a saw that was too small once and cut my finger too.
Yeah. So don't use the wrong tool for the job. And another thing too is that another pro tip is don't work above your head.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's something that we don't think about often. I used to do tradesman work before I did bonsai professionally, so I've had my fair share of mishaps and learning moments doing that type of stuff with, drills and power tools and all that good stuff and saws and even a screwdriver can jack you up. So if you're working above your head with the bonsai, go get like a stepping stool. I know in Carmen's case, this is probably something she has to do.
I need this regularly.
Do that regularly. I've been up to Michael's and the stepping stool is always something that's just on hand.
Yeah.
Most of the trees there, and bonsai trees can be really tall, so bring them down to your level, because one of the things with that too is like, if you're working above your head, your arms are going to get tired. You could drop the tool in your face. I've done that before.
Yeah. And with pointy tools, You don't want to do, and they're heavy. They're metal, man.
Heavy metal. Dude, they're heavy metal.
They're heavy metal. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll bonsai tool. Go through your foot if you drop it. Don't do that. It's not so metal to drop a tool on your foot. Like
I would rather drop the tool on my foot than have it hit the floor and chip, but that's a different story.
That's another thing.
I also wear steel toes, so there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can't stand wearing steel toe boots. That's more power to you.
Thank you. really good for kicking things.
Out of frustration or things just around the yard?
I don't know. Just, whatever.
Whatever's in the way at the moment. Look out for the steel toe boot.
Watch out.
But I mean, that's a smart thing to do because lifting trees and dropping the occasional tool. Because I mean, I've dropped my bud shears or my just regular shears just with a nice sharp point, and they'll go tip down. And we have a vinyl in the workshop where I work at, and just sticks standing straight up like an arrow.
Oh, that's it probably saves your tools from chipping, though. I should probably get a mat to work on instead of a cement floor. Yeah.
There's another tip. We should have called this 5 tips to keep your bonsai tools sharp and nice.
Yeah, to not ruin your tools or hurt yourself.
Yeah, not to jack yourself up. I know a lot of people prefer to work depends on your workspace too. I mean, some people work in their garage or in their carport where they have concrete and asphalt. It's metal. You can
get a cheap rubber mat from Home Depot or whatever.
Yeah. Like a fatigue mat, those mats they put down for a chef, something like that. People that stand on their feet, those are good because I mean, if you're standing up a lot too with your bonsai and you're working for long hours on your trees, I mean, that goes a long way. But that wouldn't be a bad idea. No. Now it depends on how high up you drop your tool from too. You might chip it.
Right. For me, it's pretty low, so. Unless I'm on the stool.
The travel distance is a little bit better. But for me, I'll drop a tool from, 5 foot,
20 feet up and just
7 feet up. Yeah.
Yeah. So tall.
And the bald cypresses out here most of our bald cypresses are big trees. So, and I work outside in gravel and, stuff like that too. And tools don't like that either. I mean, doling them up is, that's just the way it is. But yeah, the concave cutter, that is the tool. I think that we go back to that. I think the concave cutter, it comes in different sizes as well. I've seen 4-inch concave cutters for show hen stuff, all the way up to 12-inch concave cutters, big.
Oh man, the big concave cutters, they work great for cutting bamboo and large branches. You can get something maybe even a little bigger than your thumb if you have the biggest concave cutter they make.
Don't think about that. Man, this episode is putting all kinds of just weird.
Never mind. I almost was very inappropriate there.
But no. The concave cutter, if you guys are not familiar with it, you can. I mean, Google is a thing too, but the blade it looks like a little door of blade. It comes out, and then you have this flat side to it where it opens up, and it's usually got a point to it where you. I mean, that's very useful. The different aspects of these tools are useful in different degrees. So usually you use the point of that tool to dig into the wood slightly if you're cutting off a bigger branch or you're trying to get something flush, and then you use the leverage of however big your concave cutters are, and they'll scoop the wood out to an extent. They're not like another tool that we're going to talk about here in a little while, but they will. I tell people the best case scenario for a concave cutter is cutting out crotch branches. So that's whenever 3 branches are growing together and there's a 3rd branch in the middle, and you want to cut that branch out, make a nice clean transition between the 2 branches you cut back to. Looks very nice. And then it also gives the tree a nice surface to heal and to roll over, so that as time goes on, it'll heal the wounds instead of these jagged cuts or, a break in the branch. You could very well cut back with a concave cutter to a nice, smooth, rounded cut. So, but yeah, those are really sought after tools. I know a lot of people usually start out with their bud trimmer, And then they'll seek out like the concave cutter, or the next tool on our list would be the knob cutter. But yeah, the concave cutter, they typically are a little bit more expensive. And I mean, we can talk about price points after we kind of go through the tool list here, but they tend to be more expensive because it's a very specialty tool. They only make them specifically for bonsai trimming.
And if you treat your tools properly, it's going to last you forever. So it's worth the investment to get, I mean, you don't need to get the highest quality one, but a good mid-range tool is worth the expense, I think, especially if you're serious about bonsai.
Yeah, definitely. It's a hands down the most useful tool when it comes to working with raw stock. It's kind of like if someone brings me a tree and it's fresh and it's like not even pre-bonsai, it's just some raw stock nursery plant, and they're like, okay, what do we do? The first thing we do is we take out our concave cutter and also our knob cutter.
Also known as the ball cutter.
Yeah, the spherical cutter, the ball cutter. The ball cutter is a little bit more of a Jesus. Wouldn't use that one as often because if you get people who just make sly jokes, so just call it a spherical cutter. But yeah, it's shaped like a literal ball or sphere, and so it's similar in a way to the concave cutter, but instead we're going to have something that scoops out wood, and this is another highly specialized bonsai tool.
Yeah.
And they tend to be very expensive depending on quality, and they can be anywhere. I've seen them, same thing, 4 inches all the way up to just absolute monsters of tools. This is your workhorse tool. This is for scooping out wood. Let's say you're trying to create taper in a tree. You go in and you're just going to be able to go in and you want to push the tool. And this is something that a lot of people are not very careful about. Is if they push that tool into the wood, let's say it's usually used for taking off branches, and they'll say, how much wood do I remove? And you're like, okay, well, the shoulder of that branch was a certain size, right? If you're trying to make a flush cut, you usually want to push the ball cutter or the spherical cutter to the shoulder, and then just kind of give it a little bit of force slightly and scoop out the base of that branch.
Yeah. You want a little bit of a concave hole there, which is, but you use the spherical cutter, not the concave cutter, but you want a little bit of a dip there so that when it heals over smooth. Because if you cut it just flush, sometimes you get a little bump there. So that's the really nice thing about the spherical cutter is you can push in and kind of get a nice round whole sphere out of the wood, then that will then heal over.
And you could also use this tool for root pruning practices as well.
Yep.
Like
especially if you're trying to really get under there and get some of those big woody roots or the big woody chunk that's formed over time out from under your tree. This podcast is supported by Bonsai Bar, the beginner bonsai workshop popping up in breweries all across the Northeast. Bonsai Bar is 2 hours of tiny tree goodness disguised as a night out with friends. Come grab drinks, create a new tree, and watch as your friends and family get the bug for bonsai. Bonsai Bar is always looking for teachers and assistants, and you listen to this podcast, so you're probably already qualified. Bring your knowledge out to the bar. Apply today. Find event tickets, contact info, and more at bonsaibar.com.
The next tool I would put in your tool bag, and this is a root work tool, and since we're talking about roots, is the flat cutter. So
is this also the branch cutter?
It's
or trunk splitter.
It can also be called a trunk splitter, and there's a couple of different variants on this. The trunk splitter, so it's like imagine like a beaver tooth. It's like two beaver teeth coming together. And so they kind of overlap a little bit, and a trunk splitter, they tend to have a little bit more of a triangle shape where they come into each other, so that when you split a trunk or a branch with it, and by the way, trunk splitting and branch splitting for bonsai beginner stuff, don't worry too much about that.
This is an advanced technique. You don't need this one in your tool bag right away.
But the flat cutter is a little bit different because it doesn't go in. It's like the concave cutter. Instead of being round, the blade actually is all the way, it's flat. So when you push it up against the base of the root system, it makes a very flat cut.
Nice.
And so I wonder if we have some right here. I have, I'm going to show you, Carmen. So I know you can see. Hold on a second. So that, yeah, it's flat.
Yeah.
And the branch splitter comes in just a little bit more.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the branch splitter is more like flat on top and comes in like, you're right, like teeth, whereas the round one or the flat cutter is just more like a flattened circle on top.
Yeah, it kind of
squished oval.
It looks like a concave cutter, but it doesn't have the tip that comes up. And so I use this tool a lot for when and this is a small one. We use a really big one for plating trees. So like if a tree has its taproot coming out the bottom, I'll go up underneath with this tool. And this is like I said, I know you guys can't see it, but this is a let's see, this is a 12-inch. I'll use an upwards of like a 20-inch on big old cypresses and just get in there, just tear into the roots. It's a lot better. And not tearing into, I'm cutting nice and flat so that I can do what's called plating, so the tree can sit nice and flat and a bonsai can tear in the future. Yeah. And I usually recommend people use hand tools as opposed to power tools like this. Yeah. For root work. So it's a great tool to have, but you don't need a 20-inch one. You can get a flat cutter in like a 10-inch, and that's totally fine. So and it's not really a tool that you want to get like in 4 inches because it would just be kind of silly. It's way too small.
Yeah, there's no point in getting a tiny one.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I think there needs to be the next tool we could talk about. There needs to be a difference between the bud trimmer and the root scissor.
Yeah. Yep. Your bud trimmer is usually a little bit smaller, so that you can really get into some of those tinier, refined branches on the top of your tree, so that you can do some of the real delicate work. Whereas your root scissor can be a little bit more heavy duty because it's going to be cutting through not just roots, but it's going to be like cutting through your soil aggregate as well. And that can really beat up some scissors pretty easily. Yeah. And so you can retire your old scissors if they're messed up or broken or whatever. You can retire those to root scissors, but it's good too to get yourself a pair of heavy duty scissors to begin with to use as root pruners because you don't want to use the same scissors that you're cutting the top of your tree with to cut the bottom of your tree.
Yeah, because I mean, you really want to put your top tools and your root tools is kind of what I call it. Like you want the tools that you work the top of your tree with, and then you want your root tools in a separate bag. Don't mix them up because you'll cut right through your soil aggregate and you'll chip your tools, dull them up really fast. And roots, have sand and fine particles that's the worst. That's your fine, sharp tool's worst enemy. It'll dull it so much faster than you imagine.
Crunch, crunch, crunch.
Yeah. So we got our bud shear, we got the bud trimmer, our bud shear, leaf trimmer, which they sometimes call it. So you got that. You got your concave cutter. You got your spherical cutter. You've got your flat cutter. You've got your root scissors, which are more. They're also called butterfly shears because the sides come out on them to give you more quote unquote leverage. But I mean, I've never noticed.
I don't like that one. I just like the bigger style shears rather than the butterfly ones. My hands get stuck in the butterfly ones. I pinch myself. But I said, small hands.
Lovely. So here's another pro tip, guys. If you're using bonsai shears and you're really applying a lot of pressure and you get the palm of your hand stuck between the other end and it pinches it will bruise the crap out of you.
Got some nice blood blisters from that one. We're really making this sound very appealing to people,
just be careful. These are for cutting and like for work. These are, bonsai tools. Some people will look at them and be like, oh man, I wish I could do bonsai like that, but the tools are so expensive and they're, like there's this tool and that tool. I don't know which tool to use. And it just comes down to experience and I mean, I'm going to just be honest with like how some of these tools work, So, I mean, it's the reality of it. They're sharp.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think our next tool on the list would be your wire trimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And those come in different styles and fashions. And
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, interrupted.
No, it's okay. Like the typical blunt nose wire trimmer works fine, and they also have like the long handle ones, and then they have the plier style ones, and people use all kinds of. It's a preference tool. Whatever cuts your wire, but just don't use what they call wire dikes, or or like the really heavy duty big pointy nosed wire cutters, because you'll cut your branches and scar them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's 2 wire cutters that I usually go to. There's I like kind of your standard bonsai wire cutter, and then there's a little one. It's a Masakuni tool, which that brand can get kind of expensive, but it's a very small wire cutter that fits in your hand. And so when you're doing fine wiring, you can hold onto the wire cutter as you're wiring, so you don't have to stop, grab your wire cutter, and come back. If you're able to keep it in your hand and still wire, so you can save yourself a little bit of time. So those are the 2 that I primarily use. But I think generally speaking, you can get away with just a standard bonsai wire cutter. They also make something called a flart, which is like a 20 flart with an L, not a fart.
Sure. You just want to say
a flart. That is, it's like $20, and those work really well too. So there's some cheaper options when it comes to wire cutters. So it's kind of it's a personal preference thing. What feels good in your hand, and what works for the kind of wiring you're doing.
And I know that a lot of people, they'll go in and buy some of their tools and be like, this tool's expensive, this one's expensive. The wire cutter is one of those tools that you don't have to spend a lot of money on right away. Obviously, you could buy a wire cutter for like, $50, $80, $100, and you're like, oh, what am I doing? I'm just cutting wire with this thing. But
you're going to cut a lot of wire.
The different degrees of stuff that you do with these wire trimmers, and the edge, the cutting edge of it, the snub nose especially. I think everybody should have like a 4-inch snub nose cutter. And then if you're cutting bigger pieces of wire, then you're going to want to use the heavier duty version. But yeah, they're really important to have in your tool bag. But if you can't afford to get the wire cutter at the same time, then use whatever wire cutters that you have available, in a regular tool bag, like your workshop tool bags, or go out to Harbor Freight or Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever hardware store you have. I mean, because this tool, the wire cutter, and then the other tool that is not normally, because I'm going off of, I work and run our bonsai nursery here, Underhill in Folsom, Louisiana, and I'm just going off of what I sell a lot. And I sell a lot of bud shears, and I sell a lot of concave cutters, and I sell a lot of knob cutters or spherical cutters, but I don't sell a lot of wire cutters, and I definitely don't sell a lot of a wad. I don't sell a wad of Gen pliers.
I wouldn't sell it in a wad either.
Yeah, you can't really wad them up very easily, but that
surprises me. I feel like wire cutters and Gen pliers are like, you need those if you're going to do bonsai.
And a lot of beginners think the opposite of that. So
what do I know?
It's very interesting, because they're like, oh, pliers? I got those in my closet. I got those in my shed. It's like, okay, well, the Gen plier,
you can use those, but it's not
the same.
Go ahead. I just keep interrupting.
No, you're we're on the show together, Carmen. But yeah, there's a lot of great points to be made with that. They're Gen pliers for a reason. They're a bonsai specific tool for a reason. You keep on hearing me say specific over and over again. They're specifically made for bonsai. So I use channel, like, your regular channel locking, like not the sliding channel ones that come to the side, I forget what those are called. People refer to them as channel lock because that's the brand, but I also call the other ones like the snub nose, kind of just regular plier that has the 2 channels on it.
Yep, it's your standard pliers.
Your standard one. I use that for wiring trees and pots. but I use my gin pliers for bending wire onto a branch or holding wire in place while I'm bending or applying wire.
Mm-hmm.
It's a finesse tool. And learning how to utilize your gin plier and your wire cutter at the same time is a skill that is invaluable. And so, what'd you want to say about the gin plier? I didn't mean to go into a whole thing there.
Oh, I don't remember.
Peeling deadwood is one of your favorite things to do.
I was going to say that not just peeling or not just unwinding or winding wire around a branch, but the gin plier is, as the name would imply, for creating gin. So pulling off bark, peeling deadwood, all that wonderful stuff. And you can't really do that with, your standard toolbox pliers. You need something with a smaller nose on it, like the gin plier. So it's worth having in your toolbox, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of work with deadwood.
Yeah, it's a crucial tool, And then for the last essential tool that I can think of, because a lot of the other stuff is going to be accessory tools. I'll give you guys a short little running list of those, but the last most important tool, we did a skit on this for the national critiques. Best tool you put in your toolbox, hands down, is a bamboo chopstick.
Yep.
Best tool ever.
Yep.
So Carmen, give us a little bit of a rundown of why you love bamboo chopsticks so much.
Let me tell you how much I love bamboo chopsticks. We make our own out of bamboo, and I really like making them. So it's a really crucial tool. We use it for testing the soil to see how compact it is and if a tree needs to get repotted. We use it to clean off soil surfaces. We use it as a pointer. We use it to, I sometimes clean off like deadwood with it if I need to scrape at something. For repotting, it's completely necessary for going through your roots and spreading them out and or chopsticking soil into your pot. And they're totally customizable if you're making them yourself. So you can totally just use one that you get from your favorite Asian restaurant, or you can make them yourself. And I like making them for different purposes. So I have your standard chopstick. I like making a nice little short one that you can go in underneath the branches of your tree when you're repotting to chopstick your soil in. Having a really long, thin one can be super helpful for those really tight spots when you're repotting. I use it all the time for everything. So definitely have at least one chopstick, if not more, in your tool bag.
Yeah. And the restaurant chopsticks are fine.
Mm-hmm.
They have a tendency to break and snap a little easier. So
yeah,
I prefer to make mine out of giant bamboo rounds. And I know those are accessible in different places. You got to either order them online or you can get lucky and find somebody who has it in their yard. And you cut it down and let it dry. Let it go from green to dry tan. And then you can use your branch splitter or your flat cutter to cut beautiful chopsticks out of it. And like Carmen was saying, you want to have them for every purpose. You have really skinny ones, you have big, chunky, fat ones, so that you can either scale the soil that you're chopsticking in during a repot, or you can use a really fine one to pick the bark or a deadwood hole or a shari or whatever you're trying to excavate. It's endless possibilities with this tool. It's a top and bottom tool. That's what I like to kind of call it.
Poke the person sitting next to you with it.
What?
Why not? I had this really wonderful little tiny chopstick and I lost it. And I don't know where it went, and I'm sad because I loved that chopstick. I'll have to make a new one.
Was it like about this long? It was probably about 2 inches long?
Yeah, it was a shorty.
I might have took it on accident.
You have my shorty.
I think I do. I have to go back and look.
I'll make a new one.
Yeah.
My gift to you. Enjoy.
It's a gift. You can tell that a chopstick's well loved whenever all the little ratty edges of it and everything is smooth.
Yeah, once it's been
polished from just someone using it all the time. Those are my favorite chopsticks. So if I see one, I have a tendency to pick it up. So I probably took it on it. Uh,
He probably stole my chopstick.
yeah.
That's okay. We have a lot
or
of timber
long-
bamboo here that I can play with. Oh my god, my cats are fighting. I'm sorry. They're fighting over. I have a piece of luggage sitting in my room.
Oh, they
I
just
think
want to.
I think Rosie was in it, and now Coco's in it. They're fighting over who gets to be in the piece of luggage.
But
Anyway.
yeah, there's so much more we could say about tools and all the good stuff and that you could have in your toolbox. I'll just give you guys a short rundown of other really useful tools to add to your tool bag.
There's two others that probably are kind of necessary.
Which one is that?
The root hook and or the scythe for repotting.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about those. You can do a lot with a chopstick, but sometimes you really need a root hook or a scythe to get your tree out of your pot. Really, that's mostly what you're doing with it. But anyway.
And what's the root hook is different. That one's literally like a meat hook is what I kind of call it. It's a little brutal. So that's for working stock with like some serious unworked wrapping roots, or you're just having a hard time and you're tired of asking and saying please, and now you just need to just get in there and do it. It's kind of what the root hook's for.
Yep.
Yeah, the comma or the root saw, those are both really essential tools. So you can find those at different retailers and stuff like that. Just, shameless drop here is, I have stuff like that listed online at underhillbonsaistore.com, and I'll have all the Joshua Roth tools that we'll have really soon here as well, in stock listed on our website for sale. But yeah, the root, I agree with you, Carmen, the root hook and the root, saw, like the comma is a essential tool. Hey guys, it's Evan. Just wanted to take a moment to tell you guys about Bonsai Central. It's going to be a professional bonsai show going to be put on in St. Louis, Missouri, technically Collinsville, Illinois, but it's right in the same metro area. It's going to be May 3rd to 5th in 2024. It's going to be an amazing show. They're going to have top quality trees showing similar to what they had at the Pacific Bonsai Expo and the U.S. National Show. There's also going to be a Kusamono and Suiseki exhibit as well. And so with all those trees on display, there's going to be cash prizes. There's going to be 7,500 prizes, including the top prize that's going to be 2,500 for best tree and show. There's going to be an awards presentation dinner. It's going to be included in the registration. And so make sure you go over to Bonsai Central. So it's going to be bonsai-central.com and go over there and submit your submission fee. They have a call for trees right now, and they will be accepting submissions up until February 1st. So make sure you get your pictures and your examples of how your display is going to look over to Bonsai Central. It's going to be Timothy Houston that you'll be dealing with exclusively for the tree submissions. He's looking for 2 to 4 photos of your tree or display, a brief description of your tree. Exhibited trees, Suiseki and Kusamono will be included in a show book like they do similar for the national show. Also, make sure that you come and check out the vendors that will be at Bonsai Central this year coming up. You're going to have amazing bonsai potters. You're going to have amazing bonsai stand makers. Just to name a few, you're going to have now Tokateki, Vicky Chamberlain, Ellie Atkins of Waldo Street Pottery, April Gaspy, Roy Minaraya, and also Byron Myrick, just to name a few. It's going to be sellers of imported Japanese and antique Chinese pots, as well as nurseries from all around the country, featuring Yamadori pre-bonsai, mid-range to show quality trees in Kusamono for sale. So when you attend the show, you can pick up a show tree there and hopefully have something that you can enter the show the next year. Don't miss out on our amazing bonsai headliners. So as far as bonsai artists, including Bjorn Bjornholm, Taylor Sherrod, Miria Hijik, Andrew Robson, and Maria Stemberger, and I can't forget the Kusamono master herself, Yang Cho, who I'll be giving workshops and presentations. So go over to bonsai-central.com and fill out your form and register and submit your tree, or buy tickets for the weekend and come celebrate bonsai with us. But other little things that we can put in our tool bag is, and I'm just going to go through them real quick so we can get to our next segment. The bonsai trowel. It's like a miniature trowel to push your soil down.
Yeah.
In this little tool.
I never used that.
Yeah, I like using it. and it evens out your soil, gets a nice soil surface, and gets your lip down. And then also, I use mechanics picks, like the metal picks that you use for like picking seals and gaskets. Those are great they're kind of like a chopstick, but it's like your metal chopstick, but it has a fine point for digging things out or getting things started when you're inspecting flaky wood, or sometimes I find bugs with them and I just stab the bug if I don't like it. I'm pretty brutal about that sometimes. You also have your moss brush, which is for cleaning your surface off
that's like my favorite tool. I love that little brush.
That has to be the number one tool that I have people like turn their nose up at and be like, that's the worst tool in the tool bag. That tool sucks.
No, it is not. Do you know how many people have dirty soil surfaces because they don't use their moss brush? Let me tell you something. Everybody needs one of those.
Put a moss brush. It looks like a 10-inch soil surface. Like a miniature what is it? Cinnamon broom?
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
It's an adorable tool, and it's very useful. Mm-hmm. In fact, I've used my moss brush so much I've got electrical tape holding it together because it's starting to unravel. And then you have your grafting knife, high quality one-sided grafting knife for grafting, obviously. And then you've got your carving tools, miscellaneous scooping and draw blade carving tools. Those are all very useful. There's so many different hand carving tools out there, though. I'm not going to break all those down. Let's just be here all.
Yeah, that's for another episode on.
Yeah, lots of intricate things you can do there. And then you got your tweezers, which are also kind of like another picking tool. So as you can see, like there's a lot of things that just like you need a tool for every little situation. Is kind of where that kind of ends up there. Is just like some people make their own tools. Some people manufacture their own tools with like welding or cutting and stuff. That's really cool for like things that they need to get done. I know a lot of people do that with like branch benders are just like a huge thing. Again, this is Bonsai Basics. Branch bender is a very advanced technique tool. Don't go out there buying branch benders online and then putting it on your juniper that has like barely a 1-inch trunk. Now, if you got a tree that's highly valuable and you need to crank it down, I mean, I've seen people like that one that Michael has in the shop, that one that's got like a turnbuckle style. Yeah. That thing's incredible. And those things
we've been using that a lot lately.
Highly valuable for compressing branches and bending them when you can't do it with just the strength of your arm.
Yeah.
So when you guys get more advanced and you find yourself bending branches that you can't use either your raw physical strength in your arms or fingertips, and then you're using like your body weight to bend a branch, you might be working on a different type of tree. Yeah. But we can pick through tools some more. I'm going to like on our Patreon page. I always post, well, I'm starting now too, to get more consistent with this. We'll post the link to the episode, and then we have comments on there that you guys can leave, and I'll go through them and say, what's your favorite tool in your tool bag if you're working on bonsai, and we can go in there and read the comments and kind of discuss. So I highly encourage you guys to go over there and do that. But I wanted to talk about some really quick tree critiques in our Discord server, if you've got a moment, Carmen.
I do, in fact.
Awesome. I've always got time to look at other people's trees and and do some criticism. We're not judging. We're not being mean here. What we're doing is we want to help. We want to support the bonsai community by showing people that not every tree is an award winner. Not every tree comes from gold. They're not chiseled from the side of a gold mine of bonsai trees. A lot of trees start from very rudimentary places. So, but yeah, if you go over to our Instagram page, and you'll see under the description, it'll tell you exactly what episode the trees are listed in. This is also going to be a separate post from the Joshua Roth giveaway share and boost. And so disregard that one because we're going to have a little mention on there. If you become a patron, then you become part of our pool for this giveaway that we're doing. But that's going to be a different post, so don't worry about that one. But this one's going to have a picture of an olive and a picture of a ginkgo in it. And so we'll start with the olive. This was a tree submitted to our Discord server. It was submitted by, let me go find it real quick, make sure I got the right. It was submitted by Taylor. And I know that he has
Taylor.
some updated photos of this tree, but we're going back to one of the first photos because I want to just kind of talk about it from the starting point. So we got an olive here. It has kind of a bulbous Nabari base that comes up and it's slender. And then the taper is kind of the same throughout the rest of the tree. And there's a couple of different angles that he's kind of turned it to. And I see one angle is like kind of gives you this generic kind of S-curve kind of shape. But the photo that's going to be on our Instagram is the one that's actually the front that I like a little bit better. So Carmen, what do you think about the olive?
I think that this is a young tree that, well, I mean, it has some age to it as far as the Nabari and the barking up on the trunk. But as a bonsai, it feels like a young tree to me. I wouldn't do very much to this outside of letting it grow. I think there's a nice first branch. There's a nice second branch. You can see where a back branch is. But I would really let the top run, I think, and try to create some taper. So let it run and then cut it back once there is a place to transition it into some taper. So I think that it needs time, really, and more options as to where to go as far as where your next cut's going to be, where your canopies or where your apex is going to be, that kind of thing. I don't think I think that it's too straight as far as, or there's not enough taper through the whole tree to really start styling it yet. So I think it's a nice piece of material early in development.
Yep. And you'll probably hear us say that about trees every once in a while when we do these critiques, and that's okay because we've got time to grow these trees out. And I don't know, from the photo that I'm looking at of it, I can't tell if that is deadwood in the trunk.
I think so.
The front, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
If you want to maintain that deadwood, then you're going to have to reopen it if you're blowing it out, like if you're going to let it grow and grow. Also, I don't know how the root density is on this tree, but you might have to do a slip pot to a slightly larger container or double pot it to allow it to run some more. I know olives are relatively hardy plants. They do really well here in Louisiana, and I know they do really well in much drier environments where it's harsher and hotter. They're kind of like a weird Mediterranean style, hot, humid, but then also dry, hot. You know, they're kind of like a bald cypress. They can grow just about anywhere. And so I would get this guy in the sun, see if you can get promote some back budding lower down on the tree. I mean, because you might find out later on that straightness in that above that Nabari, if you had a bud pot further down there might be a better chance to grow it out, get some nice big chunkiness to that bottom of that tree, and you might be able to cut it to that first branch that's coming down above the soil line there, because they have that first branch wired down at an angle, and it's got that very, very straightforward. That it's a beautiful shape. It's like what you should aim for, a lot of your pine tree style bonsai branches to look.
Yeah.
So you might be surprised though. I've built an entire tree off of 3 branches. So
yeah, you can totally do it.
What was that?
You can totally do that.
Yeah. So getting some buds to pop down below, getting some girth in that trunk. I mean, the trunk does have a good amount of size to it towards the bottom there. But yeah, you lose a lot of interest. I mean, you have that nice curve where that first branch is, and then it comes up and it's straight again. And then
I think, can you graft olives? You probably can. You could do it feels like it might be a good candidate for thread graft if you can get like a nice long running branch on it and bring it back down to just help, I don't know, even create, where your next cut is going to be to create some taper for a new apex.
Yeah. And advice for if this, Taylor, if this tree is at the height and the size that you like it, then cool. Then I would suggest cutting that straight section where first branch, you got a second branch, and you get this little side branch that's making like a bar branch almost. I would cut it right there and snub back your branches, and you can have a skinnier, taller tree. Just keep on that straightness is going to be there forever.
Yep.
So growing it out is key. So, and I figured we'd knock out this tree and the ginkgo alongside it. This is a really cute little tree. I love
really
ginkgos. This ginkgo is also posted by Taylor. I know he's moved some of these trees up to our attention because they've been in the Discord for a little while. So I want to go ahead and talk about this one as well. Ginkgos. So ginkgos are very, very specialized bonsai material. They're not just your regular, grow out the branch, wire it down, build pads, or build deciduous structure. They've really got a different rhythm to how they should be developed. So, but again, like I can already tell what you'll say about this is that this is young, very young. It's cute. It has a very nice size for its leaves. I mean, some ginkgos are all genetically different. Some ginkgos have massive leaves, and some of them have a smaller clustery kind of like look to this one, like this one does. It also could be the tree just is coming into leaf as well. So, but what's your take on this ginkgo, or just on developing young ginkgo from stock like this?
This one has a really pretty gentle curve. Like I really like it. So I think it depends on how you want to style a ginkgo. So traditionally they're styled in the flame style. So it's all very upright. You have your trunk, but you have multiple branches kind of coming off the trunk at different places along the trunk. And they're all kind of going up and a little bit out, but mostly up. So that's a very traditional style. If you wanted to do that with this, it would require a lot of letting it run and some gentle wires pulling everything up. But I like that it has kind of a straight trunk with a really graceful curve. So what I would do with this one is style it maybe more traditionally as a deciduous tree and not in that flame style. And so the branch on the right that's a little bit more subordinate to the taller branch on the left, I would be sure to keep that one on the right in check. Smaller than the one on the left, just so that that branch doesn't become too thick and start to overpower the main line of that tree. So I would, again, kind of just let it grow, and then really just kind of do a cut and grow on this until you need to put wires on things to kind of create a nice little canopy. I don't think that there's too much to do on it at this point, but I really like where it's going. I think that curve is it's really gentle and pretty, and I like it.
One of the things too is that I see that bud at the very bottom at the base of the tree. If that bud ever pops, do not cut it off. Let that run so you can get some meat to the bottom of this tree. Yeah. I know ginkgos don't really grow like that. You really have to do some pinching, and you have to cut back hard they encourage them to do that. But for young stock like this, unless you want to, and I hate hearing the thing where it's like, put it in the ground, some people say that, but I've seen pot grown, containerized grown bonsai trees that have been in a pot for 30, 40 years, and they're absolutely amazing. So, but I mean, one of the best ways to get this tree to thicken up is to let it, if you want to run it out, like we were talking about the olive earlier. But if you want to keep it simple, a simplistic form is like, sometimes it's better. And I encourage people to take deciduous trees and do simple things, skinny, tall trees, because a lot of people look down on the far away tree designs because they don't think it looks mature enough. Yeah. So, but it's to each his own as well, like as far as your taste and what you like to see in your bonsai trees.
Yeah, I like seeing a ginkgo that's, not styled in the traditional. How many flame style ginkgos can you see? Like it's fun to see something a little bit different. And this one has such grace to it already that I think I wouldn't want to try and change that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would keep it in a big pot, make sure it's well fertilized, and just let it chunk up.
Yeah. So thank you, Taylor, for submitting your trees for our inspection for our.
Yay! Thank you, Taylor. Sorry it took us so long to get to them.
No, it's we have a lot of things going on as far as bonsai and as far as the Discord goes. There's a lot of good community talking in there. We love that. Just make sure that for our other listeners out there and our other bonsai best buds, don't be shy. Put it in the tree critique thread and tag me and Carmen and Mike, and we will get to it and we'll talk about it. So yeah, let's go over to our bonsai word of the week real quick, and then we'll wrap up for this episode. So you brought up this word of the week. You felt like it was appropriate for this time of the year and for talking about schools as well. And what's that word of the week, Carmen?
This week's word of the week is callus.
Yep, you heard that right. We're kind of away from the Japanese words now. We're just kind of talking about.
We're just going with words that are relevant to bonsai.
Yeah, we talked about branches a good bit on some of the episodes, but this particular word I think is very important. It's something that people don't think about when they're healing wounds and growing out branches. So tell us about how plants callus, since you're the nerd. the horticulturist. I'm sorry.
Is the tissue that forms over a wound on a branch or the trunk as that's healing. So when you get that, when you start to see like the trunk, the cambium of the trunk kind of rolling over that wound, that's the callus that's forming to close that wound and heal that wound. And so you want to encourage the callus to grow over those wounds. Some of the cut pastes have I think some plant hormones in them that will help them close a little bit faster. You can always, at certain times of the year, sometimes in the summertime when the plants are actively growing, we'll go in with our fancy schmancy chopstick and just, slightly kind of poke around the edge of that callus just to
encourage it.
Yeah, to grow faster. But callus is also when you are doing cuttings or air layers, it's that part of the tissue that starts to get chunky and create those new roots as well. So callus comes in a couple different, it's still showing up at the site of a wound to create, branches or root tissue for like on a cutting or an air layer. But yeah, more generally, I think we see it when we're trimming branches and closing wounds that we can, above the soil level, but it can be below the soil level as well.
Yeah. And another note, if you're trying to heal a wound and get callusing, you want to let branches run, or your new leader, if you made a chop, you want to let it run as long as possible. And you want to start building up callusing really nice and strong. Otherwise, the tree will never really pull the sap across it. And it's one of the keys to cutting down a tree that needs taper, and you got to grow out the wound and heal it with a callus. The calluses, unfortunately, they're not tissue that will ever generate buds on top of it.
Sometimes it will.
On the edges?
On the edge. Yeah, you're right. On the edge.
That's what I was kind of, yeah. But that's another thing to be cautious about is like, because certain trees, if they get a wound, they're going to try to replace. And so just watch your calluses where a lot of buds will pop up and they'll start swelling out. And then you'll have to cut another part off of it again and cause another callus issue. Yeah. So just be careful with those swelling points.
When we're trimming and pruning in the fall, a lot of times we'll leave a stub, so that if there's a little bit of dieback in the branch, it doesn't die back into the trunk or into the main branch that we want to keep. But like late spring and then into summer is a great time to work on cleaning up stubs that you have left on your tree, or cleaning up old wounds, reopening those calluses, or cutting those stubs back kind of into the branch. And then, sealing it over, because as the plant's actively growing, that's when it's really going to form the best kind of callus. So I wouldn't recommend working on, trying to clean up any of your stubs or that kind of thing right now. But once you hit summertime, that's a super fun time I love going in on our maples and really digging in there and cleaning up all the stubs that we made in the fall.
That's the best use for your concave cutter in that situation.
There you go. Your concave cutter, your spherical cutter, your carving tools. Don't cut yourself.
Don't cut yourself. I think that's one of the takeaways from this episode is be careful. Tools are sharp. Don't drop them. Sharp. They're heavy metal, and they will not hesitate to jack you up. So be careful with your tools. Don't work above your head. Don't, maybe wear some safety glasses every once in a while. Just practice PPE.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we could have a whole episode on PPE, and I could totally geek out. Do you know how many trainings I've had on PPE and safety? Oh, woof.
In the environment that you work in at the university. Yeah.
At the university. Every year I get safety training.
Yeah. So we're kind of coming towards the end here, guys. If you've listened this far, thank you so much for listening to Little Things. And if this is your first episode, I'm sorry. Just saying a lot now. But yeah, no, this has been a great episode. We do want to do some short shout outs really quick. Close you guys out for the week. So if you want to check out my material, my content, some more stuff that I do around here at Underhill, you can go to underhillbonsai.com. Read some articles that I've written. You go over to Underhill on YouTube. I've got a couple of embarrassing low quality videos over there to watch. Go over to Underhill Bonsai Store. And I've got stock and material. I have some Joshua Roth tools for listing on there that we'll be selling. And then I've got some trees. I'm shipping a lot of bald cypresses and stuff right now. So this is a great time to go buy trees because they're dormant. So that'd be great for you guys to go head over there and do that. For you, Carmen, where can they check out your stuff real quick?
You can find me on Instagram at Becoming Bonsai. I'm also on Facebook. Also check out the Purple Pot Society. That's the National Women's Bonsai Group where we work to educate and inspire women to get into bonsai. You don't have to be a member, or you don't have to be a member. You don't have to be a woman to join. But it is a group focused on getting more women interested and into bonsai. So you can check that out as well. And don't forget, I'm just going to put a quick shout out in here before we get on to Mike's stuff. Don't forget to become a $5 patron sometime before December 25th to be entered into our Joshua Roth tool giveaway.
Yeah. Go over to patreon.com/little things for bonsai people and become a $5 bonsai best bud. We will love you as much as that, as much as possibly as possible that, within comfort zone.
Yeah, until it gets weird. And if you're already a $5 patron, if you're already a $5 patron, don't worry, you're automatically entered into our contest. So
congratulations. Thank you guys so much. And then for Mike, go over to Kitsune Bonsai. That's Kitsune, like the little trickster fox in Japanese lore. Go over to Kitsune Bonsai by Mike Lane on his Instagram. You go to his .com, kitsunebonsai.com for his offerings and his classes. He does online classes, Zoom seminars, and all kinds of really cool shit.
That's why he's not here today. He's very busy. He has 4 private classes.
He's actually in Louisiana right now working with people, which is so...
Oh, that's bananas. Why isn't he here? He should be here then.
Yeah.
He's no excuse.
He's wrapped up. Don't worry about him right now.
I know. I'm not worried.
He's doing his Mike Lane thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I do want to also talk about Say Bonsai really quick. Say Bonsai.
Oh, right. Say Bonsai.
Say Bonsai. So it's like Say Bon. But it's our Cajun crawfish boil bonsai show. As our main headliner, we're gonna have Mike, and also we're gonna have Shannon Slayer, or Salyer. I'm bad with names, but yeah, he and Mike both do amazing show-in material stuff. So Shannon is in Tennessee, and he does a lot of junipers and pines. And Matt and Mike, you know what he's known for is for his tropicals. So it's gonna be a pretty awesome little show, little super friends team of just bonsai artists over here. For the weekend, we're going to have vendors. We're going to have our vendor announcement here pretty soon who's going to be at our show. And if we get lucky, we might be able to find a live jazz band. I mean, we're doing big.
Oh, I'm so sad I'm missing it. I can't wait to come in 2025.
2025, this is going to be a yearly regional show that we're trying to start here. So yeah, I just want to build it up and get it going. So if you guys are local, or if you guys know of vendors or other bonsai enthusiasts that are nearby Louisiana that are willing to make the drive, we can just contact me at evan@underhillbonsai.com, and I can help you guys with accommodations. I might find a hotel and see if there's something we can work out with you guys. Folsom's a beautiful area, nice and open, countryside, horses, cows,
Horses.
You know, the people that come with the country environment out
With
here.
the horses and the cows.
It's a genuine experience out here. So come on down and see how many bald cypresses I can juggle. I juggle quite a few of them here. So yeah, you can go over to underhillbonsaistore.com, and Say Bonsai is going to be listed under our workshops here really soon, or our bids tab. But yeah, just wanted to put that in there real quick. If you listen this far, you might want to hear a short advertisement about Say Bonsai. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out, Carmen.
Yeah, anytime.
Definitely. We will we'll be checking in. I mean, we're at like the end of the year here, so we'll probably be doing a wrap-up episode in a few episodes. I know we got a special guest for next week, and I don't want to spoil it. I'm really excited about it. I really like him. As a bonsai artist, he's a big influence on me, so I'll just let that one hang there as a spoiler for our hardcore Little Things fans out there. They're like, ooh, who could it be? So, yeah. All right. You guys have a good one.
Bye.
Hello, this is Emma Thunderhill.
Hello, this is Thunderhill.